Jimmy is a religious single dad who meets Faith through a dance contest. While Faith doesn't believe in God because of her childhood and recent divorce, Jimmy gives her a reason to hope. Jimmy Elpidas believes everyone gets asked one important question in their life. It's about their faith in God, whom they believe in, undoubtedly. His experience with getting to that answer involves some faith, hope, love, and dancing. Jimmy's daughter Demetra approaches Father John in church. She is worried about her dad acting weird. She woke up to him crying on a Sunday at her mom's 3-year memorial service. She asked John to talk to God. Her dance studio has a fundraiser that night for a pro and schmo dance contest. She wants Jimmy to enter the contest and fall in love with her dance instructor. John promises to say a prayer and asks her to leave the rest to God. When Jimmy comes to pick her up, John assures Demetra he will take care of it. Jimmy is embarrassed about missing Bible study again for a school fundraiser. He wasn't present in the last 2 sessions too, just like Harry Caritas and his wife. Faith needs to retrofit the building with her dance studio before the city closes it down. She aims to win the $25,000 prize money from the dance contest. A creepy man is excited to do the tango with her for a few months and asks her to bid extra from him. Gerald Hogwood II approaches Faith with his dad, who is also his dance advisor. Daddy Hogwood asks Gerald to show his moves to Faith, all of which are terrible. Faith is still forced to be polite to them. Jimmy signs up next and introduces himself to Faith as Demetra and Gia's dad. Jimmy remembers waving to Faith when he dropped off his kids at the dance classes. Faith thinks Demetra is a great girl and credits Jimmy for it. Jimmy remembers that Faith came to his late wife's funeral and thinks that was very sweet of her. Gia needs to proofread her personal statement for college at night. Jimmy doesn't care and thinks a good night's sleep is more important. Demetra is disappointed that another man won the dance contest instead of Jimmy. He doesn't understand why Demetra is making a big deal of it. Jimmy sits at night with Gia's statement and tweaks it a little. Or a little too much. Jimmy learns that the man who won the contest can't participate because his wife won't allow him. Jimmy has been called for a dance-off with Gerald, who was the second highest bidder. Gia is irritated that Jimmy is dropping her off at school when she's a senior. Her tone changes when Demetra starts teasing her about her boyfriend George. Whenever Jimmy drops off his daughters, he watches mothers tending to their children with love and grace. He arrives at the office just to realize that he has forgotten his presentation for that Thursday. Jimmy's boss, Brian, is worried about his work. He has been with the company for 22 years but has been messing up everything for the last 3 years. Brian feels bad about his wife, Debbie, passing, but thinks it has been a long time now. Jimmy is desperate for another chance with Brian because he needs to think of his daughters. Brian agrees to let Jimmy work on their worst account, which is a dating website, Soul to Soul. Brian agrees to think of his future with the company if he can convince the dating website with a presentation. Demetra reminds Jimmy that he's supposed to be present for the dance-off. Gerald is warming up weirdly and blames Jimmy for distracting him. He is confident about his chances with Daddy Hogwood, cheering him on. Jimmy pretends it'll be a tough act to follow when he takes the stage. Jimmy assures Faith he doesn't have any prior dance experience, according to the rules of the contest. He brags about people calling him the Funkenstein in college. He explains that everyone thought he was Jewish, even if he was Greek. They called him Stein because of that and added the funk when he took second place in his fraternity dance contest. Gerald is already bored with his story, so Faith encourages Jimmy to do some basic dance moves for her. When he's done, Faith makes a decision and chooses Jimmy as her partner. Demetra is over the moon and asks God to help Jimmy and Faith fall in love. Gia asks for Jimmy's permission for a sleepover. Jimmy is strict about his rules, which irritates Gia a lot. He stays up at night since he's worried about work. He pretends that the cramp he got while dancing is because of squats. Jimmy assures Brian he is serious about working on the dating app account. He turns up for practice and asks Coretta when Faith will get free. Coretta informs him about a key to the studio that is kept under a mat. Jimmy notices a photo of Faith dancing with her ex-husband, Ben. Coretta remembers him as a horrible guy and is glad Faith at least got the studio in the divorce settlement. Jimmy watches as Faith teaches her students to feel pure joy as they dance. She asks them to bring out their sunglasses and keeps instructing them about their moves. When Jimmy is impressed, Faith explains that they let loose in the class once a week. She likes his sweatshirt and tries to guess what the letters on it mean. He assures her that the signs change the world, so Faith is determined to figure it out. She briefs him about the rules of the competition and how every couple needs to submit their best dance. The judges watch the tape and narrow it down to 10 couples, who will dance live in the finals. She decides to lead in their partnership since Jimmy doesn't know anything about dance. She asks him to feel the push and pull, and the ways in which she will keep guiding him. She tries to teach him a basic move like a peek turn, but he is horrible at it. His posture also needs work, but Jimmy doesn't want to use equipment for it. Judges like tight clothing, but Jimmy doesn't want to change that about himself either. He absolutely refuses to join ballet classes or work on his posture. When he's opposed to the butt-shaking move too, Faith jokes about winning many contests with it. She asks Jimmy to just sell the dance to the judges. She explains that it involves getting very close to each other and never kissing. Jimmy feels overwhelmed with the instructions, so she suggests a dinner break before they practice again. She tries to guess the signs on his sweatshirt but keeps getting it wrong. She needs them to come up with a great team name and keep practicing. She learns that Jimmy needs to attend Bible study every Friday and will be busy next month because of Gia's prom. That sounds exciting to Faith, because she never went to hers. She also has a high school reunion coming up soon, but she doesn't want to attend it. She has a lot of bad memories of a girl called Susie, who bullied her in high school. Susie was on the dance squad and convinced everyone she was a better dancer. Jimmy discusses work and claims he's doing a huge presentation for a dating website. Faith has never heard of them, even if she's on every other site. After her divorce last year, she decided to get back out there. She hasn't had any luck with dating because she's very shy. She thinks dating websites are more about checking boxes and not getting to know a person. She believes it would be much better if people posted videos of themselves answering questions. When the food arrives, Jimmy asks for her permission to do a quick prayer. Faith is confused about whether she should have held his hand during it, but he asks her not to worry about it. Coretta suggests the Premonitions as a team name for Faith and Jimmy. She remembers the time her hairstylist told her that she would pass out when she laid eyes on her husband. She hasn't met the perfect man yet, but still thinks it's a good name. Faith wonders what the term fellowship means in the context of a church. She's relieved to know it's more about forming friendships because Jimmy mentioned a fellowship with her in his prayer. She doesn't want any more dance romance or for him to get the wrong idea. Coretta asks her to listen to her heart and reminds her that she just has a month for her submission. Faith and Jimmy keep practicing, but she thinks the submission could be better. She asks Coretta to submit their tape that night anyway. That night, Gia is pissed at Jimmy for not letting her stay out late. Coretta is unable to upload the video, so Faith offers to stick around. It's the night of her high school reunion, so Demetra convinces Jimmy to accompany Faith since she's hesitating about going alone. Faith runs into her high school bully, Susie, who has tuned up with her husband, William. A man who was in Faith's class informs Jimmy that she used to have an eating disorder. He remembers that Susie used to pick on her a lot. Susie pretends to be sad about Faith being divorced, but she's clearly feeling like a winner. Susie's time capsule is read out, where she mentions that she wants Faith to admit she's a better dancer. They're supposed to have a dance-off for the trophy at the party. Faith doesn't want to participate, but Jimmy knows they can do their routine for the dance-off. Faith is worried about messing it up, but eventually agrees to dance with him. Jimmy tries to do a quick prayer for her, but Faith doesn't think it's appropriate if she hasn't been baptized. Their driver, Harold, helps them with the prayer. Faith joins the dance floor confidently with Jimmy, and they absolutely amaze the crowd with the routine. Jimmy doesn't let anyone think and presents the winning trophy to Faith. She loves that Jimmy also did the butt-shaking move they rehearsed. They wish they had it all on record and get excited when Harold claims he taped the whole thing. They rush towards Coretta, who has thankfully not uploaded their dance yet. Faith asks her to move aside so she can upload Harold's version. Coretta is left speechless when she spots Harold and faints. Jimmy and Harold are worried about her, but Faith knows Coretta had a premonition about Harold as her dream man. Faith manages to upload the tape, but Jimmy insists they shouldn't keep Premonition as their group name. The principal goes over Gia's personal statement for college with Jimmy. She needs Gia to explain the 1C she got in freshman year because top-tier schools don't accept that. She also knows the statement doesn't sound like Gia. She reads out the fancy words Jimmy has used all over the statement to make it sound better. Gia feels embarrassed that Jimmy doesn't even trust her with a personal statement. She doesn't like that he's too interfering and hates that he is monitoring her every move. Gia is also irritated that Jimmy hired a babysitter while he's off for Bible study. Faith turns up at Jimmy's Bible study and notices the same signs she saw on his sweatshirt. She interrupts them to let Jimmy know that they cleared the first round. The Correttas assume they're married and having a baby. Jimmy clarifies that they're dance partners, but the others think it's a code married couples use these days. When they ask Faith to join them, she happily agrees. Jimmy and Faith celebrate coming in the top 10 with a little victory dance. Mrs. Correttas remembers the time she was pregnant and asks Faith to take it easy. Faith explains that they need to dance in front of the judges after this for preliminary scores. The finals will be live, and Jimmy needs to learn 5 types of dances for it. The dance they perform will be picked out from a chit. Jimmy is not worried because he's happy about their success that day. He takes her out for a beer at Bronco Billy's to celebrate. Mary Sue is glad to see her regular customer and thinks Faith is very pretty. She takes them to the table where Faith admits she figured out that the ICXC from his sweatshirt is a reference to Jesus Christ. He asks her to decipher the next part and what Nika means. He shares a story of two emperors, Maxentius and Constantine, who were fighting to control the Western world. Constantine came across a message in the sky from God with 990 Nika written. It changed the world, but Jimmy still needs Faith to figure out what the entire message means. When he goes to get them drinks, Mary Sue thinks Faith must be special. Jimmy has been coming to the bar every Friday night for years, but this is the first time he has brought a woman. Jimmy brings back an extra beer for Mary Sue and celebrates them getting into the finals of the contest. Mary Sue asks them to show their dancing skills, which Faith and Jimmy are more than happy to do. When a slow song plays next, Mary Sue asks them to continue dancing since their food won't be ready for a while. Faith and Jimmy become regulars at the bar, and she loves dancing with him. Brian reminds his team to meet in the conference room for the presentation. Jimmy claims his friend is in a dance competition and needs a team name. He offers his parking spot to anyone who can come up with a great one. They all get their advertising hats on, but Jimmy doesn't like any of their suggestions. A man hangs an eviction notice outside Faith's dance studio since the building is being condemned. Faith is worried she won't be able to attract customers with this notice. He offers to give her a month while he targets other buildings before hers. Faith arrives at Jimmy's office and wonders why his last name on the trophy mentions Hope. He explains that Jimmy Hope is his business name because his clients can't pronounce Elpidas. It also means hope in Greek, so he's not technically lying. Jimmy apologizes for not practicing that day because his presentation for the dating website got ruined. Faith reminds him that she asked him to suggest taking videos of people to know more about them. She writes down some questions and asks him to record her. When he asks if she believes in God, Faith shares that she was not raised in a religious family. She has never been to church, and even her parents split before she was born. She shares that she was named Faith because her mother felt hope when she was alone and delivered her to the hospital. Faith thinks it's too late for her to believe in God because she's trying to figure life out. Jimmy asks about the saddest day of her life next. Faith thinks it was the time she found out that her ex-husband was having an affair with multiple people. She left Australia at the age of 16 to study dance and fell in love. She was very young when she married her dance teacher. She realized later that he cheated so he could have children. Faith can't have kids because of an eating disorder in school that messed up her body. Instead of asking for a divorce, her ex waited for her to find out about the affairs and split with him. She jokes about the happiest day of her life when she got rid of him. After the interview, Jimmy hopes he can get some tips from her to say things with an Australian accent. He believes it can help with his clients, so she suggests a few phrases he loves. Jimmy gets excited when she shares that they will rehearse hip-hop that night. Brian notices shadows dancing in the office and assumes it's a security breach. He calls the guards but is impressed when he realizes it's Jimmy. He assumes they're in the middle of a role-play situation and asks Jimmy to have fun. Mrs. Caritas thinks Faith has a baby bump the next time they meet in Bible study. Jimmy's colleagues keep suggesting terrible names for the dance group. They're all so bad that he doesn't believe they work in advertising. Faith is worried about how she looks in a suit because she's still suffering from the second date curse. She had a date with Vinny 2 weeks ago and still hasn't heard back from him. She thinks it's because she's too shy, so he didn't even try anything when he dropped her off. Jimmy suggests upping her game to give these men a chance to really know her. He asks about her go-to move when a hypothetical Vinny drops her off at the house. He asks him to pretend he's Vinny and role-play with him. He tries to fake flirt with her and loves that she's using the full name to make an impact. He also loves the seductive voice but suggests another step in their plan. He wants her to show Vinny a revenge post and promises to explain it after she puts on a red tango dress. He asks her to wear that dress the next time she goes on a date with Vinny. He teaches her to be confident with her walk and how she needs to show that she's not a shy girl with her confidence. For the revenge post, she needs to arrange a fake date with her guy friend to make Vinny jealous on social media. She doesn't have anyone, so Jimmy offers to be the friend she can canoodle with. Jimmy takes her out for a Greek dance and they keep taking pictures, drinking wine, and having fun. When he drops her at the door, she reminds him they need to capture their kiss as well. Faith gets so lost in the kiss that she's unable to snap a photo of it. Jimmy gets the perfect one, which Faith posts online that night. Gia and Demetra get excited about Jimmy kissing Faith and tease him about it. At the preliminary trials of the dance competition, Faith asks Jimmy to not worry about scores. That day's scores only constitute a third of their total scores. Faith is also excited because their fake date idea worked, and Vinny asked her out again on Valentine's Day. Gerald comes to scare them before the competition. That doesn't work, because Jimmy and Faith are more worried about deciding a team name. Faith panics when she realizes the third judge is her ex-husband, Ben. Jimmy gets distracted too and falls in the middle of the tango. He feels bad for disappointing Faith since they're coming last in the competition. Faith assures him she still wants him as her partner and thinks they can salvage it during the finals. When Faith is leaving, Ben teases her about getting a terrible partner. Faith is sure Jimmy is a great dancer, so Ben suggests she should trust him and let him lead. Jimmy seems distracted during practice too, so Faith wonders what's wrong with him. Jimmy shares that he has done the tango a few times with Debbie before. Faith realizes she's being insensitive and asks to hear his story about losing her. Jimmy shares that he and Debbie made their wills a few months before she passed, but he still hasn't opened the letter she wrote to him. He thinks it might be a final conversation if he does. He remembers the day of the accident when she went into a coma and no one could help her get back. He cleared the room and made sure Gia and Demetra could say their final goodbyes. Alone with her, he remembered their first date when they went to a Latin music festival and watched the sunset. She wanted to do the tango with him, but he was horrible at it. She promised to teach him how to do it, and he danced with her on their anniversary every year. He held her hand at the hospital and assured her the sun would rise again, and they would finish the tango they couldn't get right. He started praying after that. He assured God he would never be a casual Christian again if he helped him get through the pain of losing her. Faith assures Jimmy he will see Debbie again one day, and she wants to make sure his tango moves are perfect for the last dance with her. He's not sure she can train him, but they start practicing with full gusto. Gia shares with Faith that their mother always wanted them to have a brother, so Jimmy could play football with someone. Gia thinks one side of her face is tougher for makeup, but Faith assures her that everyone is like that. She thinks it all works out when the makeup is done, and everyone is perfectly imperfect. Jimmy loves how beautiful she looks, and agrees to extend Gia's curfew to 1 in the night on Faith's insistence. Gia comes back and wonders if her mom would be proud of her. She feels bad that she argued a lot with her and Jimmy. He assures her that all teenage girls do that, and is sure Debbie is proud. Demetra asks to watch a movie that night with Faith and Jimmy, and falls asleep between them. Gia turns up early at home because she wants to avoid people who are doing stupid things at the after party. Faith is about to leave, but Demetra wakes up and asks if she can tuck them into bed. Gia and Demetra hope Faith likes Jimmy, but she insists they're just good friends. The girls ask Faith to pray with them and are thankful for her. Faith informs Jimmy that they're not practicing the next day since it's Valentine's Day. She still wants to get in one more practice before finals on Tuesday. She comes back within seconds and shares that she's thinking about getting baptized. She has been inspired by Bible study and believes that men like her dad and ex-lovers have always let her down. She wants to finally put her faith in God, who is a man, and learn a different way of trusting people. Jimmy's colleagues suggest more team names, but Jimmy doesn't like any. Faith drives home early on Valentine's Day because her heart wasn't on the date with Vinny. She gets excited as she watches Jimmy practicing alone at the dance studio. Coretta is also in another part of the studio enjoying a romantic date with Harold. Faith joins Jimmy and shares that she couldn't go through with her date with Vinny. She offers to practice with him and they're almost about to kiss at the end. Coretta interrupts, so Jimmy leaves awkwardly. Brian has convinced Pete from Soul to Soul to hear their pitch again. Jimmy begins his presentation, but he can't move ahead from his slide of guitars. He hands in his 2-week notice to Brian, who tears it up. He knows Jimmy still has the funk, and asks him to figure out what's holding him back. Gia's teacher wants her to read out her original personal statement in front of Jimmy. Gia discusses how she has been asked to explain her 1C in high school in geometry. She admits that was the time her mother perished in a car accident. She also knows the bad grade is just because she's bad in geometry. She has learned from her mother's passing that life is imperfect, and admits that she is too. She refers to herself as perfectly imperfect like Faith told her, and hopes the people at the college like it. Jimmy shares that he'll miss Gia at college when he gets a call from Brian. The dating app execs have decided to give him another chance for his presentation on Tuesday evening. That's the same day as his dance finals, but Brian doesn't give him a chance to change the date. Faith is frustrated that Jimmy is canceling on her last minute, and feels bad for trusting him. Jimmy finally decides to open Debbie's letter and starts laughing when she jokes about dying before him. Debbie asks Jimmy to not mope around for too long. She wants him to move on with another woman who checks all the right boxes. On the day of the competition, Hogwood's dad keeps praising how good he is. Jimmy shows Pete his short video presentation, with Faith's interview about how Soul to Soul can improve by establishing more meaningful connections. After a powerful presentation, he arrives just in time for the competition. Faith prays with him and thanks him for being in her heart. She admits he has had her heart from the moment he prayed at the restaurant. She also asks him to lead this time in the dance because she trusts him. They're assigned the tango for the finals, which Jimmy was afraid of. Faith has figured out the rest of his jacket and knows NIKA stands for victory. She asks him to believe in God's message from the sky, and she admits she figured it out by Googling it. They still haven't decided on a group name, so the comparer pairs their name and suggests Faith Hope. Tommy suggests Faith, Hope, and Love, and is excited to get Jimmy's parking space. They dance with a lot of passion, and Jimmy doesn't regret kissing her in the end when they aren't supposed to. They get a perfect score from the judges, including Ben, and win the competition. Jimmy gets the chance to watch Faith's face light up again on many occasions. Faith ends up reopening her dance studio with the money and getting baptized. They also get married and pose with their baby boy and the girls. He's grateful for all the faith, hope, and love in his life.